Back in session. Roll call.
Carlson? Rivera?
Here.
Maniscalco?
Here.
Pertek?
Here.
Goods?
Here.
Miranda?
Here.
Secho?
Here.
We have physical quorum.
Thank you. We'll go to agenda item number 2, file number CM 23-80250.
I do have to say something about that, Mr. Massey. Did you want to speak first?
Just real quickly, Mr. Smith submitted a memo. I think we had a pretty robust discussion this morning during public comment about the issue. So unless there's one clarification I think that Mr. Shelby would like to make that probably everyone needs to be aware of. But other than that, really have no presentation.
Council, hi. Good afternoon. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. We talked this morning, and I had read you Section 2-282, sub I, from the Tampa City Code regarding what we call colloquially as the cone of silence. Once an RFP or an RFQ and like is broadcast and it's sent out and released, then that provision applies. And basically what happens is that continues. And there were representations made, and for clarifications, that cone of silence in this instance here does not end on May 1st. It is due back on May 1st. All the people who wish to, all the companies who wish to submit something, the due date for that is May 1st, but the cone of silence continues through the process of seeing what came in, evaluating it, ranking it, and ultimately what happens is the department makes a recommendation to the purchasing department, and when that recommendation is then published on their website, whatever date and however long that takes, that's when the cone of silence goes away. So it does not end on May 1st. It's still in effect, and it continues until such time as a recommendation from the department goes to the purchasing department. And I just learned that this morning clearly from the purchasing department. I spoke with Greg Spearman. So I just wanted to make sure you clarified that process.
Councilwoman Hurtak. Okay, Councilman Miranda.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Does that mean that they have to reapply now again?
It's a new RFP. So the other RFP, from what I understand, by way of background, is that was recalled. I think that would be the correct term, Mr. Massey. It was rescinded or canceled?
Correct. The RFP when you originally made your motion about the RFP scope, the original RFP that was issued was revoked or rescinded by the administration, and there was a meeting with the tow truck providers, and a new RFP was then issued. It's much more narrow in scope. It applies only to police vehicles that have to be impounded for police crime type of things. The rest of it, the rotation remains, which is like 95%.
But they don't have to reapply for their
No,
rotation?
they do not.
Okay, that's what I wanted to find
Yes, sir.
out. All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Massey.
Is there any further discussion, or do you wish to have this received and filed? Or
Councilman Goods, this is your motion. Councilwoman Hurtak.
I would like to make a motion for council to be notified within 48 hours of that decision being made, so that then we can then set this meeting for that time when we can start talking about this again.
if that's council's pleasure.
We have a motion made by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Carlson. Any final discussions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Motion carries. Councilman Goods, does this satisfy your request?
Councilwoman has done everything she's going to do to take over this, and Mr. Carlson, so I'm good with it.
Thank you very much. Councilman Carlson.
I kind of said this morning, but with the way, if we look back at the relationship between council and the mayor's office a couple years ago, it's easy to think about this as trying to preempt or usurp city council's authority on this. And you could say the same thing about the tree announcement yesterday in advance of our meeting today, and a lot of other things. But I hope that the administration will work with us going forward and invite council to press conferences and include, make it more participatory going forward. And something like this, supposedly we got calls. I don't know that I got a call, but a call or a quick email, usually we're pretty easy to get a hold of. A discussion in advance would have prevented the long discussions we had this morning. So hope we can all figure out how to work better going forward. Thank you.
Agenda item number 3, file number CM 22-77485.
Afternoon, Chair. Afternoon, Council. Vic Bide, Director of Mobility Department, here to address item number 3. Motion made by Chair Citro, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak, relative to drainage ditches across the city that have been filled in illegally and without permits, and what can be done to correct this issue. So a quick background to that effect, a memo was not issued because I wanted to address this to council directly, because it is a tricky situation, as I'm sure you're all familiar. This is a decades-old challenge, specifically or primarily in older platted neighborhoods. And a big part of this issue is over time, and it's twofold. Over time, when neighborhoods were platted, say in South Tampa or West Tampa, typically in the 60s or before, they did have some drainage systems, typically swales or ditches and things like that. Over the decades, as people change hands and properties change hands from one property owner to another, some of these ditches or swales were filled in illegally, as alluded in the motion itself. This was partly due to encroachment. The best that I could surmise based on the information that we have, this was also partly due to less regular maintenance in terms of resources that the city may have contributed to stormwater maintenance in the past. And because of these two challenges, lines became blurred, new property owners may have encroached on ditches, and the only way for us to tell at this time is again twofold. One is when our teams go out into the field to respond to concerns or do maintenance, or when a property owner, typically a new property owner, calls with a challenge on a case-by-case basis. We go out there and we find out what the issue is. Now, I have to mention that since 2016, when the service assessment, the stormwater service assessment was passed, since then, we have been able to dedicate adequate resources to maintenance of the existing stormwater system. And what this means is on a regular basis, we have contractors and our technicians go out to our facilities, monitor these facilities, know where they are. So this is more of a historical challenge, but it has accumulated over decades. And there are two ways we find out about it. When a customer complains or when a community member complains, typically a new homeowner that has water collecting in areas where they feel like it shouldn't, or if we have a project, a capital project or maintenance, and someone finds, a head wall or the remnants of a ditch or something like that, in which case stormwater engineering is informed. They add that information to our GIS layer, and they either work, if it's a complaint, with the property owner on small projects. We call them a list of 100 projects, and it's a rolling list. And these are the type of projects that we address as part of it. Or our operations folks go out there and do what they can with the situation. Going forward, and what can be done about this, there are really two things at a broader level. Council approved late last year a task force order to conduct a gap analysis for the overall watershed management plan efforts for the entire city. As part of that, we will identify gaps where major projects are needed, which will mitigate major issues relative to stormwater and drainage. And that will, of course, translate into CIPs from there on. But the other also is continuing to work on a case-by-case basis as concerns from the community come up. But beyond maintaining the system that we have and adequately resourcing that and continuing to work with community members, anytime we find this information, we log it and we create a data point for another small project going forward. Councilwoman Hurtak mentioned education for property owners. So that is something we will look at as well. We do, through our stormwater engineering and operations divisions, do education about yard waste, clippings, before storms, and so on. We will add this to our list as well. And we're open to creative ideas. I mean, one of our team members mentioned maybe we should reach out to real estate agents so they know that, you know, when properties change hands and all. So we're open to ideas. We'll try different things, and we will commit to doing more education on this. And then finally, I will close by kind of highlighting the need to resource these things. So we have a service assessment. I hope council and future councils continue to support this. We will continue to have needs for additional stormwater infrastructure as well, hard infrastructure, as well as environmental projects in our river and coasts and all. But these, just like the tree issue, require resources, and we look forward to working with council on the same. I'll be happy to take any questions at this time.
Any questions? Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you for that report and for mentioning the 2016 stormwater, the service assessment that was put in place to combat the drainage ditches, to help maintain and clear out those drainage ditches and other avenues on a higher frequency because they were neglected for years. And because of that service assessment, we've seen many parts of the city that are not so prone to flooding because, again, you know, these ditches aren't being neglected. However, in this case, about people illegally filling them in without permits, you know, here we are trying to do the right thing, and we have to fight this other battle, you know, with folks closing them up. So you've really no questions, just a few comments, but you've answered everything, and I appreciate it, and I look forward to, you know, working together and you know, moving forward. So thank you.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
Thank you. I echo that. Thanks. This was it was actually the perfect day to go along with the trees to talk about all the ways we're trying to help mitigate the water situation in this city. So so from my understanding, you all do not have like a master list of where these swales are already, or you do?
We don't have a master list. What we know is all documented in our GIS and UMAP, so both infrastructure as well as swales. Now, if we look at all the plats and historical plats on a case-by-case basis, sometimes they do show that there were swales or ditches, and if you go out there, like, for example, south of Gandy, around the Oklahoma area, those were two plats, and there are only two streets that even resemble the original intent for the stormwater system in the area. So we've lost it over decades since the 50s, and lack of maintenance really added to that challenge.
I understand. So going forward, what we're going to try to do is when folks are out in the field, just finding those, educating homeowners, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I think that's wonderful. I'm not quite sure how we continue to keep this on the agenda and keep us talking about it. If you have any suggestions, because it seems like it's really just a regular maintenance thing. But it seems like you could also work with the Natural Resources Department to discuss both trees and swales when we're talking about mitigating water. So maybe a combination. So when we have, I'm bringing back a motion about a tree map. So maybe during that, I'll come up with something with a motion to maybe bring this back and discuss it a bit more later on.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, Chairman. And this sounds easy, but it's not. I take an average of 12 months, that's what we have in a year. And let's say we do 12 hearings a night on the average, times 12 times 12 is 144. But we really don't have that many because there's 1 or 2 that we miss somewhere along the line. Let's say 144, that's a lot. And you multiply that by 10 years, now you're up to what? 14,000. So the only way you're gonna find out what happened, and one way is to have somebody just look somehow, if there's, I don't know if they're all on computers, I don't know how they are. And just they're gonna have to go in case by case and look at the things that the council, this council and other councils did in the past to find out where we're at today. And that way you can, when you identify them, you can click them on, and every time you put that type of zoning in, it separates them from the rest, and you can certainly find that going forward. To do it, you're gonna take some time. You're not gonna be able to do it overnight. You're gonna take months. Somebody to do it an hour, 2 hours a day to find out where we're at. And as we go forward with these special ones, at the night of the hearing, then they have to be in a different category so you can put them in and so you can find them later on. You just can't say what we're gonna do and not red tag them in one fashion or another. Computers are great, but if there's nothing in them, you can't find anything. So you have to do it manually. And I hate to tell you that, but that's the way, I mean, I'm not a computer genius, I'm not, but that's the only way you're gonna find them, sir.
Councilman.
Councilman, you're absolutely right. If I could just respond to that the manual inventory may not yield as much benefit as we may want. Our best efforts are going to be looking forward, planning for the next stormwater system, and which is why we're developing the watershed management plan, which usually takes care of a majority of the concerns from this sort of accumulation, and then continuing to work on a case-by-case basis, as I mentioned, as these concerns come up.
Yeah.
But that's our best force, most efficient force going forward.
And going on, I'm also saying that even now, people that want to put pavers down, they get a permit, but I don't think they're told you can only go so far with that. You can run it, and it's got to be explained to them, because some of them, I see them running all the way to the street, so there's no sidewalk, they're just pavers. And then you got to cut it. So I think at time of the person coming in, applying for a permit, it's a time that somebody has got to tell them what they can and cannot do, and let them sign off that they've read and okay with it. That's just my suggestion.
Councilman Goose?
Well, Vic, thanks for being thorough again. You always are helpful. And I just want to say thank you on my way out the door. Every time I needed you, you were there. You didn't BS me. You told me where it was. I remember the lady on Columbus, how we went out to her house together. That lady was very impressed with that because she thought somebody really cared. And we're glad we were able to help her on that project a little bit. But I just want to say thank you for always being upfront and honest. And, you know, you have a job to do, but you always was a straight shooter for me. So I want to say thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Bede, the reason why I asked this, there was a woman in West Tampa who, back when we had the heavy rains a year ago, her property was getting flooded because some people along her street filled in the drainage ditch, whether it had been 2 or 3 prior owners. And I was just trying to figure out that there's cause and effect by everything that gets done. Someone fills in a ditch without the permits, their neighbor gets flooded. The liability is going to fall somewhere, and I'm just trying to figure out what can be done by the city. We just can't go in with a backhoe and dig up those ditches again. But there's still flooding that's going to happen because those ditches are filled in. So I'm hoping that citizens that are getting flooded out, whenever we get heavy rains, because of these illegal ditch, filling into the ditches, that we can do something. So please report back to council as quick as you can. Again, that was the main focus on why I wanted to bring this up, of the cause and effect of illegal ditches being filled in illegally.
Understood. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Council. Assistant City Attorney McLean Evans. Of course, it's your discretion. A couple of you mentioned you'd like to make update motions, but I just wanted to remind you, Mr. Bede does appear quarterly with stormwater updates, so perhaps for the sake of your agenda efficiency, you might want to tag the update onto his next scheduled update.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
That's a great idea, thank you. So can we just add that to the stormwater updates? The quarterly? Just kind of like
Sure.
how we're, not anything major, just how we're doing, any issues, problems, maybe new suggestions your staff has for different ways. I think that is the perfect time where we're all talking about stormwater, so thank you.
Sure, that's reasonable.
Mr. Bede, if I might add, when you do that report, if there are concerns by neighbors who their property is affected by these ditches that have been filled in illegally, some sort of remedy that might help stop the flooding or not make it as bad as what it is because of these ditches being filled in illegally. Please and thank you. Any other comments or questions? Thank you. Agenda item number 4, file number CM 22-78127.
I believe Morris Massey, Legal Department, I think the items on your agenda is a council discussion about property and lien issues, but I'm here, I'm happy to try to facilitate the conversation or answer questions.
Mr. Chair?
Councilman Goose.
Mr. Massey, I think the gist of this motion and discussion was a lot of times, you know, especially in some of our underdeveloped communities, we have a lot of code enforcement liens on their properties.
Mm-hmm.
And there are liens. But a lot of times they can't apply for some of the city rehab funding or any type of programming because of the liens. So I'm wondering how can we, or what can we do to get those properties back into circulation to be able to get those liens or remove those liens or get the homeowner, or if they've disappeared, find a way to be able to get that property, do whatever to put those homes back into circulation to get rid of the slum and blight.
The primary focus of our code enforcement program is to correct the code violations and not really punish the property owner. The liens do have a daily fine that does add up, and it does become a cloud on their title. But if they're willing to remedy the code enforcement issue, then the city has fairly broad authority to release the penalty portion. So that's one way that we have tried to remedy this issue. So we try to release the liens virtually at very little cost. We don't try to add an additional amount on top of actually taking action to remedy the violation. We do have a number, as you're aware, the CRA has a number of programs where we really don't talk about liens. The roofing emergency grant is one of those things. Technically, that would be a code violation, not having a proper roof on your house. And we're putting the roofs on people's houses without asking for a release of that lien, but or deal with code enforcement issues. We're just going in and doing it. Tree trimming is another example where we tried to go in and address issues without saying, ooh, you've got to release the lien or remedy the issue first.
I didn't hear that. I'm glad you're saying that publicly, because my
yeah.
understanding that if they had a lien or whatever, we couldn't help them.
So some programs are set up where you can't, and so it's program by program, and we can certainly go back and look at our programs and look at that item. But the gist of the code enforcement system, as I'm aware, and we can look at how we release liens, but especially for homeowners, it's not to penalize them. It is to incentivize them to remedy the situation, and then we will go ahead and release the lien at little or very reduced amount, dollar-wise, penalty-wise. That's really, we don't want to penalize.
Well, and I'm glad you said that. So I mean, hopefully you can give this council a copy of what those remedies are, what those criteria
Sure.
are, because I think it's important, because with the housing crisis, a lot of these houses are just sitting dormant and vacant. And if they're our liens, we should be going in there trying to see if we can get with the owners or what have you, how we can put that in circulation or do whatever we need to do. But I'm always hearing about the lien. So I think going forward, hopefully this council, future council will look at that and see how we can fix that process. Because if there are our liens and we got a housing crisis, how can we make that right to where we can help some people?
Understood. And obviously, if it's part of a city project, if the city's involved in trying to, I don't know, purchase property, we can go in and address the lien issues ourselves. We did that with the grocery store that we purchased there to expand the East Tampa Regional Park Complex that's going in. That had a slew of liens on it. And we went ahead and just took title, took down the building, the lien issues are resolved. So that, I mean, if it's involved in a city redevelopment project such as that, we will go in and just take care of it ourselves as well. So that's another way of dealing with it. And again, Kamari Pettis-Mackle is the attorney that sits with the Code Enforcement Board, and I thought I had the most recent administrative guidelines for releasing liens, but again, it's tied on timeliness. If you let it go forever and ever, the maximum amount that staff is authorized to release gets a little higher. But the bottom line is they want the code issue remedied. The penalty portion is really not something the city is really concerned about. We just want the code violation remedied. And so and the
reason I said it because, you know, a lot of times people can't pay the lien, but they can't afford to get that property fixed either. So if we have programs, that's why I was looking at, well, if we control the lien and they can get into our program, we can add that to their mortgage, whatever you do, but at least we can put that back in circulation. So that's the mindset.
And we can also look through through our redevelopment, you all sitting as a CRA, we could potentially look at revamping some of our programs and criteria so that part of the CRA grant money could be used for that express purpose. I'm not saying we can't do that. We could potentially do that. So.
Thank you, sir.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
Thank you for the discussion and thank you for talking about what we can do. And I understand that the city's goal is to bring people into compliance, but what I'm also hearing from Councilmember Goods is what happens when they don't get into compliance and we have these empty properties. We're not talking about people who are living in these houses. He's talking about these properties that are empty, that are causing a blight on the community as places where people congregate where they're not supposed to.
We can identify those, and if we have code enforcement liens that are valid, we can foreclose those, and we have. And so we can, especially if we've expended hard cost liens and they're not homestead and they're not occupied, then those are properties that we would look to potentially foreclose and acquire for potential redevelopment efforts by the city or by the CRA.
Can you, I mean, I know this isn't necessarily your area of expertise, but do you know how many of those properties we currently have an issue with?
I know at one time we did look at properties primarily in the East Tampa and Sulphur Springs area that were non-homestead, that we had there were code violations outstanding or potentially outstanding still, that the city had hard cost on. We did a kind of an analysis of that. We thought that it would be much larger. We came down to probably less than 40 properties that were eligible, but we can go back and look at that again and go through that exercise again. So
I would like to do that just because history shows that when you have a property that's blighted like that all the neighbors, it's a problem property.
Correct.
If we could come in and take it, if it needs to go through the foreclosure process because the owner will not take care of it, and it's fixed up and then able to be sold, it will change a community.
I understand that, and we agree with that. We do want to be careful how, if we go down that path, that we do it in a targeted sort of way so that we're not taking people's properties away from them.
Absolutely.
So it's a balance, and so we have to be very careful how we proceed there. But yes, I hear you.
So yeah, I mean, when this discussion is over, I would like to make a motion to create that list again, and then maybe focus on paying attention to those property owners and trying to reach out specifically to see what we can do. I think that would be a good place to go forward, so thank you.
Councilman Carlson.
I would support that idea too. A little bit different question. If a property has code enforcement fines, does the staff have I'm asking you a technical question. Does the staff have the right to waive them? And if not, can the mayor waive them by executive order?
The staff has the authority to waive them down to a certain degree, depending on the type of property, if it's homestead or not. Then if it's homestead, we have the ability to waive the penalty down to almost nothing under an executive order that the mayor issued. If it's not homestead, then the ability to waive the fines, we can waive it, but it's not as much as we would for someone's homestead property.
Is it
So
like
it's-
is there a limit that a mayor, not this, but that a
No.
mayor can waive?
No.
A mayor can waive
No,
any amount?
there's no limit, and different jurisdictions have come up with different programs. Some jurisdictions have lien waiver holidays that if you bring it into compliance, all liens are forgiven, and they'll do it for a 1-month period. So different jurisdictions have come up with different strategies. All of them are aimed at trying to bring property into compliance. And our executive order also allows, if it's part of a rehab effort or some kind, we have the ability to waive it all fines.
Do you have any, and again, I apologize, it's not your area, do you have any idea how often that happens, that they're waived?
I don't know, I can't tell you exactly.
Is it like a couple times a month or 20 times a month? Any idea?
I don't know, to be quite honest with you. It often comes up, obviously, when someone's trying to sell their property or refinance their property, because then the lender will come in and say, I won't make the loan until you deal with the code enforcement lien issue. And so that's when that typically comes up, when somebody comes to the city and says, we're ready to deal with the issue, and what do we need to do to bring this into compliance?
Yeah, here, just a couple concerns I've heard in the community, and not so much this administration, but before. There was a property, and I don't want to say which property or anything, but there was a property in South Tampa that was high profile 6 or so years ago, where allegedly the last mayor waived like almost $1 million in fees. And but there's at least one property owner in East Tampa that has a high amount that was not waived. And so I want to, the allegation, better than, I have not had any allegations against this administration for this, but the allegation was that it was arbitrary or political. If you're a friend, then you get it waived. If you're not, and
I can provide you all, at least under this administration, there's an executive order that sets out an even playing field. For these properties, we'll do this. For these properties, we'll do that. It's based on objective criteria, not who you are.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great, because just so we can answer questions, because sometimes people have lingering memories from a long time ago, and if it, I assume, because I haven't had any complaints, I don't know if anybody else has in the last couple of years, but that it's been done equitably. But I want to make sure in the future that it's not that it's not done in an arbitrary way, because there are people that would like to still have control of the house. They'd love to have it waived, but they can't. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other comments or questions? Councilwoman Hurtak.
If there aren't, I'll go ahead and make my motion to bring the list of houses that could possibly benefit from a second look, that have a lot of liens and are not homesteaded. About how much time do you think?
If you could make that maybe in either your meeting or workshop in July, just to give us time to make sure we have, because we'll have to go research the list and update the list and look at it. So, and sometimes what we found when we originally did the list, we originally thought we had a lot. A lot of the properties have been conveyed actually to not-for-profits for rehab purposes. And for some reason, there was not proper documentation showing the liens had been released.
Okay, okay. So how about July 27th?
That's fine.
Second. We have a motion. We have a motion made by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Carlson. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
And of course, if there's more time needed, please just
No,
let me know and we'll
absolutely.
make an extension.
Thank you very much.
Agenda item number 5, file number CM 22-78638.
Good afternoon, council. This is a continuance request. However, I do have a memo with a status update that I wanted to provide with some backup. This is in response to a motion on November 17th. City Council asked staff to conduct additional public engagement regarding accessory dwelling units, specifically south of Kennedy in the South Tampa areas. We held 2 public meetings. One was on February 7th, the other on Davis Islands. That was virtual. The second was in Hyde Park at Kate Jackson Center on February 27th. And thank you to Councilman Carlson for attending the Hyde Park meeting. Both meetings had about 40 participants. And we presented an overview of the current code related to accessory dwelling units, the current code related to extended family residences, as well as the criteria for just generally any accessory structure in the city. And then we discussed some potential options for criteria that could be used moving forward if we were to change the geographic areas with a modification to the ordinance. The questions that were asked from the Hyde Park group were provided. These were prepared by Mary Lou Bailey. I want to thank her if she's online or watching. Very thorough and very helpful. What staff is going to be doing moving forward, and I've summarized, condensed it even further into a set of bullets in the memo, just to explain generally what we heard. There are a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. A lot of them relate to just wanting to understand better what the code requires and what it doesn't require, what the definitions are, and just the process. So we're in the process of preparing information, outreach materials and that sort of thing that we can then go out and just communicate and make sure people know what is allowed and what is not allowed, what is an ADU, what is not an ADU. Even just that discussion alone took like 30 minutes, going into some of the details. So we're going to be preparing that information, and then we'll be coming back in September with the results of the housing needs evaluation, which is going to give us more specific numbers in terms of what the need is for a housing type that is small and that is more affordable, that's something that an ADU could actually address. An ADU is not the silver bullet solution to the housing crisis, but we know there is a need for that specific type of housing, and what is that need, what does it look like now, and also moving out into the future. So once we have that data, once we have some of the educational material developed, we're going to come back in September and then provide a broader update with actual recommendations. So we're not bringing forward recommendations today. We're taking the input that we received, and then we're going to modify what we showed you last year and then come back with a new recommendation.
Councilman Carlson.
A few different things. One, you're asking for a continuance to September?
Yes, sir.
What date?
I believe it's the 22nd for the workshop.
So I move to continue this to whatever date he just said. September 2nd.
Thank you.
We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilwoman.
Yes, yes, please. Thank you.
Yes, September 28th.
Thank you.
Okay, September 28th.
We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. So I've attended a lot of public meetings. I have attended a lot of really difficult and challenging public meetings. I walked in about halfway through or something this one, and it was a really difficult public meeting. So thank you for standing up there and talking to everybody. But so we would not propose including South Tampa until after September then, right?
We have paused everything. We've also, this motion was just for South Tampa. We've also gone and had some discussions at the request of Councilman Goods with East Tampa. And so we're trying to bring all of this together, because what we don't want is to have different rules in different areas. That was sort of the subtext of what you all told us last time. So we did pause everything. So when we come back in September, we'll be able to revisit everything holistically.
So a couple things. One, I would recommend that we take as long as we need to get this done. If it takes another year, let's do that, because we need to get deep into the neighborhoods and community. People are very, very, very worried and upset about this, and we need to be careful. But also, I was just in, with my other hat on, I was in, I participate in the Tampa Chamber benchmarking trips and also the St. Pete Chamber benchmarking trips and sometimes others. But I was in Austin the last 3 days with St. Pete Chamber, and we had Mayor Welch and 3 of the city council members, and we met with lots of different people on different policy issues, but one of them was housing, and we had several different panels on it. Number one, the housing people said, we thought ADU was going to be a big solution. It wasn't at all. It was a bust. And so this is not, we spent way, way, way too much time on this for what it's going to do, and at least based on their experience. And what they said was that people didn't build them because of the land and construction costs, and so it wasn't the solution they thought it was going to be. Plus all the restrictions that we're talking about putting on. So we need you may have other examples of other cities where it's worked, but just because some members of the community are pushing for it doesn't mean we should spend a lot of our time on this. Second, and this is the most important thing, they're having all the same discussions we're having, but the one thing they said was that they wish 10 years ago that they had taken the number of houses they thought they needed and multiplied it times 10. Their biggest threat right now, the big tech companies aren't moving to Austin because affordability has become their number one issue, and they're where we are where they were 10 years ago. And we're desperately trying to catch up, but they said we had no idea. We were having the right discussions, but we had no idea the volume that we were going to need. And they said we were on the verge of becoming a big city, and now we wish we had gone backwards. And the number one thing was land, which we've all been talking about. How do we assemble land? How do we do that? And we need to protect the neighborhoods that want to be protected, but the areas that we can build in, I think we've got to accelerate. We've got to shoot way higher than we are right now. Affordable housing and housing units in general. And it's going to be a tough conversation, but it'll decimate our economy if we don't start planning ahead right now. And these are from people inside the city chamber and other groups that are working on business development there. Thank you.
Councilman Goods.
Well, thank you for that, Stephen. I mean, there's some that are for it on the east and some that are not, because we're already a transit area in some of our areas, and they don't want more slum of life. They bring that on, and people not being accountable for those ADUs, which I can't blame them. Then again, we have a housing crisis. It saddened me. One of the young ladies, one of my basketball players, she came in and spoke on my behalf before. She has a school over off of ML King, but she's found another building to expand her school. And as she went to the new building, and she put it on Facebook, she saw two young men, small kids, out playing basketball in front of the new building. And where you guys? Because she thinks she might get these two kids to be a part of the school. And come to find out, the kids were homeless, and their mom had built a tent behind the building, Mr. Miranda. And she says, as she went behind the building with the two kids, she said they were well-mannered. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And she says, as she went to go talk to the mother had all the kids' clothes so neatly in the tent, Mr. Miranda. Had food set over for the kids. And she said she was afraid that the mother was going to run off. And she didn't know what to do. She said she started crying because she couldn't believe that a building she just bought, that these two kids, with a mom who's got no place to go, but found a way to build a tent behind the building so the kids could have a place to stay. It's kind of like I told you when I used to go to the parking lots and I see the mothers in the parking lots at night with the kids in the parking lot, then they go to McDonald's to bathe them in the morning for school. But yet we harp about an economy. The economy is good. You say recession all you want. When a recession, it means that people are spending money. They got money. But people don't have compassion because we're a capitalist society and it's all about the dollar. And you got to have compassion for people because everybody don't make the kind of dollars that everyone else makes. Everyone just doesn't. And when you see small kids, you wonder how they become development challenged. You wonder why they have behavioral problems. See, if you never lived it, I tell people, if you never lived it and seen it, you don't understand it. But to a mother, I don't care if she's rich or not, but to a mother to go see two small kids sleeping in a tent, that will get to anybody. Will get to anybody. You know, people talk about, you know, city shouldn't get into housing business or shouldn't be in the housing market. I have to disagree because government has to play a part sometime when people are doing bad. And right now, people are doing real bad. I got two buddies of mine, I just found them a place. Got another buddy's going to help them out because what they make down in Ybor City trying to work, they don't make enough to pay the rent. With both of them, say they get another person to come in to pay the rent, $2,400 That's not normal. I don't care what nobody say. That's not normal. But yet, I've got condominiums, all these type of places in downtown, all over the place, that the rent is so high, but no one's living in them though. But no one's living in them. That's a problem, man. It's just, to me, there's something's wrong with society. I get we're about making money. I want to make money. I would love to be rich. Would love to have all kind of dreams, you know. When I sit back sometimes and I listen to the stories Mr. Carlson talks about when he goes all over the country and he's able to take his children to get them to get that experience. And I dream about how I wish I could take my grandkids to the place and show them the stuff he's seen, man. That's valuable information because, you know, he's taking them to other poor places to see how they live. That's why he talks the way he talks sometimes, because he's seen other countries, how people live, how they change their culture. And information he brings back is, to me, is valuable. I'm hoping this year's budget that I had asked to make sure that the budget now includes a piece of the pie for housing. I asked for that. Hoping that the administration will do that to make sure that housing is included into the general fund, because you got to have housing for people. You got to have housing. So I'm glad that you took a step back, and hopefully Ms. Travis and a few others can start looking at some developments. You saw the young gentlemen last week. We talked about 22nd and Columbus, Mr. Randall, last week. I said, if you put something there and you don't do nothing else around there, all you did is create a dump again.
That's right.
That's all you're going to do. We got 40th Street in Hillsborough. Why don't we try to buy that property? Find a way to buy that property, put a grocery store, put something that's valuable there so people can go there. A lot of people in that community, money's just sitting not being spent. I don't know why. I don't know why we just can't spend this money. I don't understand why we can't spend this money. So I'm hoping that the future CRA boards will continue to blow the horn. Like I say, you got to spend that money, man. There's money. There's money in the city budget too. You just got to find it and put it to the right places. So again, I know Mr. Carlson, Lynn, and a few others, they're gonna keep fighting the horn because, you know, they understand the humanity of what has to happen in this city. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Carlson.
No, I just want to, one thing I want to add to that from the discussion in Austin, we also listened to private developers, and they all said if they could go back 10 years, the number one thing they all would do, all the housing people, all the developers, is the same thing we've been talking about here, which is buying land. So I'm sure Ms. Travis is watching and her people, but we got to get those community land trusts going as soon as possible, because the wave that we are like Austin 10 years ago. We're about to hit an enormous wave, bigger than we've ever seen. And the only way we have to survive that is to buy as much land as we possibly can, put in a land trust. Here she comes.
Councilwoman Hurtak, and I'm going to go to Ms. Travis.
I understand the desire to kind of think about pausing, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a community that's begging for us to move forward as quickly as possible, and that's Tampa Heights, who is asking to keep their neighborhood. They love the diversity of their neighborhood, and they're absolutely losing that because they don't have places for their community members to stay in the neighborhood. So for every time people say, well, let's slow down, I can tell you Tampa Heights, from the people I speak to there, would love to be any type of test case. If we have to just use some place, I mean, I understand. I think it's just gonna be incredibly hard to get the entire city on board with one particular type of housing. We have so much to do. I don't know that we have the, I understand people's desire for time, but it takes a really long time to get something like this to happen.
I get it.
So it's not overnight, and I don't want 4 years to pass and for us not to have done anything and to have just possibly acquired a little bit more land without really thinking about the density we need and how do we keep the communities that we have whole, and reimagining the type of housing that we're looking at in this city as a whole. This is a much broader discussion, but I'm just concerned when I hear pause. So
I can speak to the Tampa Heights comment, and it does relate to East Tampa as well, but there are still two publicly or privately initiated text amendments from maybe 2 years at this point ago that are going through the process, both of which we're seeking to make modifications. Those applicants were seeking to make modifications to include East Tampa, the overlay area, as well as Tampa Heights. But again, those are privately sponsored, so they will be coming back to you. So we will be taking a look at the criteria and the suggestions that come out of that process, and perhaps that can offer some example for what the citywide changes should look like.
Ms. Travis.
Good afternoon, Council. Nicole Travis, Administrator of Development and Economic Opportunity. Been listening to the entire conversation, and the one thing that is for certain is that there's no silver bullet to our housing crisis. It's just not affordable housing that we're struggling with. And to Councilman Carlson's point earlier, from an economic standpoint, if we don't get a handle on our housing situation, we're going to be turning companies away and pretty much stifle economic growth in the community. So the time is now for us to do this. Related to the accessory dwelling units, there are some neighborhoods that are adamantly opposed to this for their neighborhood, and there are others that desperately want this. And so what I would ask is that when we come back in September, at the September workshop, is to allow us to present to you a path forward for those areas that do want it. And if there's more intentional conversations for the areas that do not, perhaps we can carve those areas out. But to Councilman Carlson's point, another point that he made earlier is that the accessory dwelling units, we don't anticipate that it's going to solve our challenge. It's just one small little nugget that will help in the overall need for additional density. There's a greater evaluation that we need to do. We're doing that with our housing needs assessment and some other initiatives that we'll be bringing back to you related to housing, and not just affordable housing, but housing in general. We have a supply issue, and we're growing at a pace that is not sustainable if we don't try to increase density and use all these different tools for that. So there's no silver bullet, but I would ask that you carefully consider in September moving forward with the areas that do want accessory dwelling units, and carve out the areas that have voiced their concerns and their displeasure with moving forward with such a policy change. So thanks.
Any further discussion? Thank you both. I'm sorry, Councilman Miranda.
All right, so I agree. Let me just say this. What Mr. Carlson said about that the dwelling units would be more likely a promiscuous amount of people coming in the 600 square foot, 800 square foot. That's what you're talking about, right? Correct? Behind another house. I don't think I don't think that's an answer to anything. I think that's a start of something because what I see in a certain neighborhood, and I'm not going to mention it, I don't see it here. I guess you're trying to say on 13, how many legal non-conforming structures should be converted to this use? And then there's 15, what is the accessory dwellings that are being rented now without a special use permit? I can tell you there's hundreds of them, maybe thousands of them. I can name you 121 because I got the map. from the prior administration. I can tell you that none of these are paying taxes to what they should be. They're rental units, some with a resident being there and some with no resident being there. And they got them labeled apartment A, B, C, and D in one house. And they got them everywhere in that area. So what are we doing about it? Nothing. And what can you do about it? Something. But you can't do it without thinking how they think. First thing they do is put a fence around the property, then they put what? Solar. So the electric bill is down. The only way that you can tell what it is by the water meter, how much water they use. And these are things that are going on, and when you drive by where it says no parking on the right of way, you see 5 cars parked diagonally across. And when you look at their yard, you can hardly see any grass or any dirt because they got 5 or 6 cars in front of the house. And I'm not blaming them. We never checked on this from the beginning, way back, and not this administration or other administration, it's been way back. These things have been going on for a long, long time. And I don't know if they're still alive. I had 2 or 3 friends of mine that were acquaintances anyway, and they were paying, and when he went to pay by check, they said, no, you gotta pay by cash. So there's no evidence of nothing. So they're not as naive as we think they are. They're not as open-hearted as we think they are. Maybe some are, but the majority are not. It's an income without taxation. It's an income without paying higher property taxes, and they don't even report the property, the income that they get to the federal government. So these are the things that are hurting, especially the school system and others, including ourselves. And when you see, talked about the rental properties that are, what do you call it, Airbnbs. You'll see, I see a house, there's 2 or 3 houses close to where I live, and you see no one there for weeks. And all of a sudden, you'll see 2 cars in the garage and 2 cars on the sidewalk, blocking the sidewalk. And in 2 days are gone, or 3 days are gone, or 5 days are gone. And when it comes back, they're all different cars. So either they own a car dealership, or they're renting out the properties to Airbnbs. And I don't know how you can get a list of all the Airbnbs in Tampa. I guess you can. More than likely you do have one. You don't have one. I can tell by the look in your face.
We've attempted to do that through the property appraiser.
Yeah.
But based upon the agreements that are in place between our property appraiser and Airbnb, Verba, whoever, that information is scrubbed. There's a number, an identifier, but we don't get a list of addresses, a list of names.
But it's not going to be an easy thing to do. But we have to start somewhere. You have to send a letter out to somebody that, is this a rental property? At least start with, I'm not a lawyer. Lawyers are here. They can figure out what to send out. And if you don't return it, there's something wrong. And if you do return it, maybe you can say, my whole family's living here. So, but I understand you're verifying the things. It's not easy, and how are you going to get the verification that it is a cousin? Unless you do one of them searches in the internet, and you can find out the family tree, I guess. That's the only way of finding that out. I'm not against people helping people, but you can only do it for a certain period of time because they're hurting the whole neighborhood. Not only in the looks of it, because they don't keep maintenance on it too much, but these houses I'm talking about are brand new, or some houses they spend $200,000 and $300,000 on. Guaranteed they have, because I know what it costs to do things. And it's there, and there's not one, there's many of them. And anytime you or anyone else wants to take a ride with me, especially at night, you're welcome, and I'll show you. And you can pick the street, and you can name them, you can see them yourself. I don't even have to point them out to you. You'll notice them right away. Or any one council member, I will let somebody drive the car, and I won't go in that car. I just tell you where to go, and you can find all you want. That way I'm not violating the law. I'm just having a humorous time a little bit, but that's how you find things out. You don't find things out by just driving home the same way every day. You drive home a different way every day, and your eyes open up a little bit more because you see a lot more things happening. And I wish you the best, but between now and September, you'll be weighing 20 pounds less, chasing all these things around. I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you very much.
Agenda item number 8, file number E 2023-8, chapter 27.
Stephen Benson, City Planning. This is a transmittal request, so we brought forward 9 amendments for the January 2023 cycle of text amendments to the Land Development Code. That came before you in March. And you asked us to move forward with public engagement. So you also asked us to do a little bit better than we had done in the prior cycle in terms of packing on so many amendments to just one meeting. So we scheduled three meetings in March and broke them up by amendment. The first meeting was held on March 20th, and that one was just focused on the request for an amendment to the design exception criteria. There was an extensive discussion about that at the March meeting about what should be changed. Should it be the types of design exceptions to be changed, or should it be the process for notice? Based upon the conversation that occurred at this meeting, there was not consensus on what actually to notice, but there were a lot of ideas on creating new types of public notice. There was a parallel amendment, or a parallel motion, excuse me, to look at modifications to the good neighbor notice. I believe Abby Feely is working on that one and her team. So our recommendation, and speaking with the 22 individuals that attended this meeting, we believe that the best course of action is to sort of package those together to run concurrently. So I will be requesting a motion to tie that to the good neighbor notice modification. Out of that conversation might be a recommendation about what design exceptions should be noticed and should not be noticed, but right now there's one process for notice, and there was not consensus that that should be done for every single type of DE. So that's the first sort of requested action that we have for this set. The remaining 9 amendments are ready for transmittal. The text is included in the packet. We have one adjustment to the language related to courtyards that I am happy to go over here with you. This was also a result, I think, of Councilmember Hurtak's comments about wanting to make sure the language is really tight and it can't be misinterpreted as to what a courtyard should or shouldn't be. So this is the one that I will go over, and then I'll be asking to transmit these to the Planning Commission to move forward for the adoption process. But before I go over this, was there any questions about what's left to discuss? Okay.
Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, so this is and Eric Cotton, I believe, is on the line as well to answer questions, but this is the revised language for the courtyard, and the proposed definition would be, and just a reminder about the purpose of this amendment, some sections of the code, mainly the design criteria for certain types of uses, they invoke the term courtyard, but the word is not defined anywhere. So this is our attempt at defining it and bringing it in line with the definition that's in the comprehensive plan for courtyard. So this is, courtyard would be an unoccupied space other than a yard, which is open to the sky and on the same zoning lot with a building or group of buildings, and which is bounded on at least 2 sides by a building, buildings, or walls. So it's got to be bounded on at least 2 sides, has to be open on above, and it has to be on the same lot as the building that's being rezoned. It can't be shared by multiple lots. The purpose of the courtyard, the intent, is that it should be designed exclusively for pedestrian use, not for motor vehicle use, and it may or may not be shared between occupants. Sometimes when projects come in, it's proposed that the courtyard is fenced off. As long as it still functions as a courtyard, staff does not have a problem with that. Sometimes they want it to be open and shared, that's fine too. And then just clarifying that a courtyard may also be referred to as an interior court, because that language is used in the code as well. But the main change that we wanted to make was designed exclusively for use by pedestrians, not for motor vehicles, to make it clear that you can't bring us a project with a big driveway and call that a courtyard. It's just not, we're not going to accept that. So this is the final proposed language for the courtyard. Happy to answer any questions on this one.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
Can IT bring that up again, please?
Oh, I apologize.
It's not you. Yeah, there we go. I appreciate the exclusive use for pedestrians added there. This is silly, but it's an Oxford comma thing. Building, buildings, or walls. Do we not add a second comma?
We can add the comma.
Just- See, as an editor, I'm so pro
Is legal
Oxford
going to
comma.
weigh in?
To be very specific, but you also said which is open to the sky and on the same zoning lot with a building or group of buildings, and it just has a comma there instead of and. So did you mean to say and, or did you just, was that another?
Well,
I just want to follow along with you.
Where on the first line, when you read it, you said which is open to the sky and on the same zoning lot with a building or group of buildings. If you did you mean and, or just to have like a separate?
I was just trying
Okay.
to be overly
Okay,
verbose in how I was
just,
explaining it,
okay,
but yes,
just
thank you.
trying to figure out, so if it doesn't have to be. Okay, no, I really do appreciate taking out the idea that a courtyard is for cars.
Councilman Miranda.
This is a clear example. If we don't put something in the books that you can check this out, it won't be a courtyard for long. It'll be something else, as you well know. So we're talking about fixing things and doing things, but if you have a building without a wall, without a roof, with walls on two sides, let it go 2 or 3 years, see what happens. It'll have a roof, and it'll have a door and a lock. And it'll have people living in them. That's all I'm gonna say, because now you're creating another thing, which is fine with me, as long as it's checked out on a basis of every 2 years or something like that, and if they do something, but that's gotta be documented at the time you do it, so when the papers go into the courthouse, it's on that piece of property, what only they can do. And that's it. That's the only way you're gonna solve it. The rest of it is called fairyland, like Disneyland, because you're not gonna get it, you can't do it. I'm trying to make fun of it because it's making fun of the system. And it's not you or the mayor or us, it's a system that has to be changed. But thank you very much again.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
If no one else, I move to ask staff to transmit the final proposed language for 9 text amendments to the Land Development Code to the Planning Commission.
Second.
Mr. Shelby.
Does that include the comma that you had suggested? No.
I just like to point that out.
Well, I just want to share, counsel, I hope you don't mind me doing so, but I just want to share with you that even when it comes down to our interpretation of the charter, a comma does make a difference.
It really does. It does. That's why I asked.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Any final discussions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Motion passes.
And I move to continue, I move to continue the proposed text amendment related to public notice for the design exceptions to the June 22nd, 2023 City Council workshop to be heard along with file number CM23-80761, modifications to the Good Neighbor Notice.
Motion made by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Any final discussions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Motion carries.
There was one issue, Mr. Benson, there's just one issue that I had raised with the legal department, and that's being transmitted, and make a motion to transmit it.
Yes.
It's with regard to the continuance in a local state of emergency of, let's say, quasi-judicial hearings. And I had some concerns with them in terms of practicality and implementation, but I'll be able to discuss that and work it through as it goes through the process. But I just wanted to bring it to your attention that it was something that, that I had a concern about, but we'll be able to address it. Thank you.
Councilman Carlson.
Just quickly, Councilmember Miranda, although I would love to go on that nighttime tour with you, we can't because of sunshine.
He's gonna follow you in the car and give you directions. He's not going in the car with
Oh, okay. No, we can't do that either. We can't.
you. No? Okay.
So, but
I'll get you a driver, how's that?
But the communication department seems to have a lot of staff right now, and so maybe somebody could follow you with a video camera
There you go.
and edit a video to educate us all on illegal structures. I think that would be a worthwhile endeavor. Seriously.
But it's there.
Charlie Miranda, except he's a hunter with an Australian accent.
Crikey.
Crikey.
Information reports. Councilman Miranda.
I don't have any report to give on today. Just,
Okay, I apologize. Everybody's throwing their sheets of paper away. I was just wondering. We need to continue agenda item number 9,
Move to continue to.
which is
June
file number
22nd.
E 2022-H, chapter 27.
Move to continue to June
Second.
22nd, 2023.
We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Motion carries. Councilman Miranda, information and reports.
None, sir. I just want to say I enjoy working with those that are going to somehow not be here after this Thursday meeting, and I appreciate your commitments and your work for the last 4 years in making the city better than what you got here. And marking forward, it's something that will change, and there's one thing about winning and one thing about not winning. You're still yourself, and you still can do whatever you want to do, as long as you do it within the realms of the possibility of the facts that are before you. How do you like that for a political speech, Mr. Goods? Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I really do, gentlemen. Take care.
Councilman Goods.
Well, let me start with Mr. Shelby. Thank you for what you've done these 4 years for me, to be able to give me some knowledge and guidance to some areas of your expertise. I tell you, always be the coach, Marty. I'm still going to tell you that. Always be the coach. You're the leader of this dais, and you have a chairman. You have to be able to express your opinion to the chairman and be able to tell council members what's right and what's wrong regardless. That's your job as the city council attorney. It's to give us your opinion, your legal opinion. So I want to just leave you with that. Bill, let me say thank you for what you've done, man. I want to say that in the beginning, people tried to make you out to be the bad guy for East Tampa and wanted me to turn a different way to you. But I can say you turned out to be a friend. And I can honestly say that. You turned out to be a friend in times that a person needed a friend. Sometimes, I could speak on certain things that you couldn't. And certain things you spoke on that I couldn't. I appreciate you for speaking out for truth. You have to have that with anything. The truth will always set you free as long as you have the faith. And when God, you believe in a man of above and you do the right things, they always happen. So I want to say thank you for being that friend in the end. So I needed a friend, and I appreciate that. Mr. Vera, let me say thank you to you. I remember when I first ran a campaign, I learned a lot from you. And I appreciate that. In the end, I was angry with you for what I felt what you did. But again, my heart, my conscience is clear, sir. And I want you to make this what I call a lesson for you possibly in the end, sir, because I think we all learned something about what happened, and we all can learn something. So again, I leave with no hard feelings, no ill will, and I say good luck to you in your future endeavors as well, sir. Guido, you the soft-spoken one, the one who wants to make peace. And it's good to make peace, my friend. But sometimes you got to be a lion, too, in the den. You got to roar. And if you ever want to be the mayor of the city, reach higher. You got to show people sometimes you can be that lion. But you won't go along to get along. But I understand you're still young. You're making your rounds. But I appreciate you for being a friend, too. I appreciate you for always coming by and, we're out there. So I do appreciate you. Never think I don't. So good luck to you and your future endeavors as well, my friend.
Thank you.
Mr. Zitro, we became friends early. I don't know what happened. But I never will leave a place angry or leave a person to feel that I'm angry with them. I'm not angry with you, sir. I want you to know that. Whatever you do in your future endeavors, I hope you're the best as well. And I think we've all learned something being here. Nothing's ever promised or given. You have to earn everything at the end of the day. And so I want to say thank you for the good times and the bad times. But I wish you good luck in anything you do, sir.
You as well.
My friend, the other hellraiser of the council, you fought a hell of a fight, endured a lot. You came in, people thought you'd be one way, but you turned out to be that real lionist. You gave them hell. You gave everybody hell, and you showed people that you're not afraid to get in the fight. And that's what people want. People want people who will get into the fight with them. Be it wrong, bad, and indifferent, but we'll have courage. You always say, I would hear me say, never be a coward. And you showed me you were not a coward when you first came to this council. But you've been a friend since I've been here, and I want to say I appreciate you. I know one day you'll probably run this council as a chairwoman, as a chairman. So I'm looking forward to see you on TV, seeing you that day running this council, so I'm sure it's gonna happen. So God bless you and your endeavors. To the old man, the guy who knows it all, seen it all, is quiet but has that seeky eye to know what's going on, not what's going on, but gave me good advice while I was here. I appreciate that, what you gave me. Never take it for granted. But again, you'll be able to give more wisdom, more knowledge to those who come. You did that for me. I remember the first thing you said, you know, I remember what you tell me, and it's true. You never be mad with somebody's vote. You mean telling me that?
They can do what they want.
You never be mad with somebody's vote. And always, you know, you didn't lose, you just didn't get enough votes.
That's exactly right. Now you go nuts. I've been there.
You know, and it's true. But what I want to say to thank you to you all, to the clerks, Sulene, Charlene, Miss D, Miss Shirley, who are our family, Miss Tanya. When I needed a person, she was there. I want to thank you all, Amari, and to the staff. You know, I didn't have to always agree with some of the staff members, but I always respected them. I respect the administration as well. I didn't agree. But to agree, to disagree, we can't be angry with one another. We just have a difference of opinion. And we have to respect that. And I'm always going to respect everybody and respect the place. But I always will have my opinion. So again, I say thank you to all. And I'm going to sign off tonight. And I'll start my vacation plans for each month. So God bless you all. I'll start my real retirement now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilwoman Hurtag.
Wow, it's hard to follow that. I want to say thank you, Councilman Goods, for, you know, taking me under your wing when I first got here. And really, I mean, we developed a friendship on the Charter Review Commission. We sat next to each other then, too. So developed a friendship there and just continued it here, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for Councilman Citro and his ability to sit on that same commission with me. But I'd be remiss, I want to make sure that we have an introduction. We have a new gentleman who's going to be, new officer who's going to be helping us out. You want to?
Well, it's my pleasure to serve you all. My name is Ferdinand Barbosa. I've met most of you. I go by Junior in the department. I've been with TPD for 23 years, and I look forward to serving you all and protecting you and working for you. And I know I have huge shoes to fill from this gentleman, so thank you.
Well, we're happy to have you here. I just wanted to make sure I said hello before everything.
Thank you.
Councilman Maniscalco.
A couple of things. Councilmember Goods, I've enjoyed working with you, serving with you. I've said it before, I say it again. You're the hardest working city councilman, I think, who knows, maybe we've ever had. I mean, you're out there day in and day out in the district, fighting the good fight, listening to the people. We may not always agree. It doesn't matter. You did the job that you were elected to do, and I think you did it better than anybody else. And you should be very proud of that, and you have a lot of people that are very proud of you. And, you know, we'll miss you. We appreciate you very much. And Councilman Citro, I don't know, how long have we known each other? Since I was born?
I think I gave you one of your first haircuts.
My grandmother gave me the first haircut. You may have been the second one, because my grandmother used to cut hair. So my family and you go back, my mother knew you in college. So that's 1980, 1979, 1981. But I appreciate you and your service. And I don't think we've seen the end of either one of you. You're very, very involved. I mean, your fingerprints are all over the city. You know, people know you, people know the type of people you are, the hard work and the dedication and the service that you've done. So we appreciate you being here. So, and that's that. I do have I guess a quasi motion. This is totally separate. If we need to make a motion, but if you notice in the clerk's office, they're doing work. I mentioned it briefly, but in the lobby area where Carencia would sit, there's like the stick-on pieces of, you know, square pieces of carpet, and they've pulled up some of those, and the original tile floor that's probably from 1915 is there.
Let's say it.
And I think, you know, I mentioned to some folks in facilities that are working there the other day, I don't know who we have to ask, or just an informal request that lobby area, that square, that they just leave it exposed, pull the carpet off, and they just have to give it a quick polish because the tile underneath is in good shape. I think it looks nice with the city crest. That's the mosaic one that's on the wall. For the historic aspect, this building has been modernized inside. Outside, of course, it looks original. So I don't know do we need a motion or just a request of facilities that, okay, so a motion that we ask, facilities, the folks that are working in the clerk's office, to expose, meaning pull off the stick-on carpet that's there in the lobby area only, and just polish up those tiles underneath. I think it's going to look beautiful once it's done. So.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Motion passes.
That's it. Thank you.
Councilman Vieira.
Thank you very much, sir, and I appreciate the words, Councilman Guju. It's not easy speaking from the heart like that. I appreciate it. You like Councilman Maniscalco said, the difference between you and Councilman Citro is Councilman Citro was citywide. You represent a district. When you represent a district, you have a unique parochial duty to hit hard for that district. You always have. You still remember the first year there in the budget when you brought up the rec center, and that was kind of unheard of at the time. I mean, it was just to stop a budget and be like, hey, listen, my district needs this. But I appreciate your words a lot. I mean that. I really do. And Councilman Citro, to me, you're Pothole Joe, which is that you're always the guy that citizens would come to for, everyday issues and roads, et cetera. And you've just done such a good job with such a real zeal for everyday services for our people in the city of Tampa. And both of you all have a deep, deep, deep love for this city and whatnot. And it's really appreciated, 110%. 110%. And I actually do have a quick motion, if I may. One, I motioned, there's an organization that I got to know by the name of COPS, which is dealing with survivors of police officers who have been killed in a line of duty. Now, I wanted to invite for Police Memorial Week Cindy Roberts, who is the widow of Mike Roberts, who was taken from us about
2009.
12 years ago. To speak to us on May 18th, just for 5 minutes about the organization and what they're doing.
Second.
And Stephanie Barnes, whose brother was St. Petersburg Police Department, was taken from us as well.
We have a motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor? Is there any opposition? Motion carries. Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, I guess we'll see each other in a couple hours anyway, but I want to say thank you to Chair Citro and Councilmember Goods. It's been great working with you guys. Councilmember Goods, thank you for the nice words. Just so the public knows, we can't talk to each other outside this room. So it's fun. We were on the Charter Review Commission, and then here, it's fun how we can, we all have to sense what each other is thinking, and because we can't talk to each other and compare notes outside. And Councilmember Goods, I appreciate your advocacy for your district, educating me at least on the things that your district needed, and your persistence in chasing those things. And I think everybody can see your heart is in it, and your dedication, and your honesty in addressing issues. And I think it's been refreshing. We've resolved a lot of issues that the city needed to go through a transformation the last 4 years, and I think we together helped make that happen. Now hopefully we can move into a phase where we can all heal and work together and make things happen, but we had to go through this process over the last 4 years. The good news is that I look forward to having a cigar with you sometime soon. And speaking of cigars, congrats to my other colleagues who won on Tuesday, and especially to Council Member Hurtak, who faced unbelievable odds in getting hit. And I can't imagine, I was hit with about half as much as you were hit with, and I can't imagine what it was like to go through that. And so thank you for persevering through that, and hopefully it sent a lot of signals that the public is serious about change in this community. And we've had several wins now that are proof that the community wants a balance of power, they want good government, and the administration is saying they want to work with us now, so I hope that will all happen. But the public clearly is aware of what's been happening. They're educated about what's been happening, and they voted. So let's move forward and make the positive changes that we need in this community. Thank you all.
Thank you. I have to make Lehefa happy, and I'm not talking about Paula, I'm talking about Fran Constantino. So I'd like to make a motion using the process to be finalized in next week's ordinance. I would like to motion to rename East Ybor Park to Constantino Park because of the family's long-term presence in Ybor City and the history the family has had with the improvement that have happened over the years in this East Ybor Park.
Do we have a second? Second. I think this is wonderful. I've known Fran a very, very long time, and again, when you talk about a hardworking individual, Orlando Goods is a hardworking individual. Fran is right there, and how she's devoted herself for years to the community, and I can't even tell you how many boards, organizations, nonprofits, very, very much deserved. So we have a motion from Chairman Citro, second from Councilmember Carlson. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion to receive and file.
We have a motion to receive and file. Councilman Shelby. Mr. Shelby.
No, if I can. Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence for just a minute, I just want to say, from where I sit, it is a tremendous honor and a great privilege to serve the City Council. And both you gentlemen, I want to thank you for the opportunity to serve you, to help you better serve your constituents. It's been a tremendous honor and privilege for me, and I want to thank you for your accomplishments for your time on City Council. And I think the community benefits greatly from this council and what you've accomplished with your leadership. That being said, gentlemen, and Madam Councilwoman, there is an organizational meeting, 2 p.m. here on Monday, at which time you select the chair and the chair pro tem of City Council and the chair and the vice chair of the CRA. I've also been advised that there will be somebody here, Brian Sullivan will be here to take a picture before the start of that meeting for the purposes of updating the website. So just be prepared for that. And again, I just want to say thank you.
Motion to receive and file by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Mr. Chairman, one last thing. I just want to be sure that we have a 5 o'clock meeting and we have a quorum. If there's anybody who wishes to appear virtually, as long as we have a physical quorum, that could be arranged. Okay.
It's just one item.
It's just one item, and it's very short. Thank you. I'm sorry to
This
interrupt.
workshop is adjourned. City Council will reconvene at 5:01.